How's Steven?
He's not normally here.
No.
But we are doing a special book club this week in celebration of the holidays. We are talking about A Christmas Carol.
I've only ever seen the Mickey Mouse version. Like, we had a Mickey Mouse version book when I was younger, so I read that, and then I think I've seen the Disney cartoon one.
I mean, I think within my life, I have seen probably the Mickey version you're talking about. I've seen a stage production, a musical production, multiple movie productions, and I've read multiple abridged versions, as well as this. This is the original. This is the full story, unabridged, and it is a beautifully illustrated book. You'll actually see, we have the illustrations from this book.
They've already seen it.
Yeah, what you're seeing.
It's up right now.
No, I know. What I was going to say is the illustrations you're seeing are from this book.
Okay. Well, you were just saying you're going to, and I'm like, no, they've already been up. They're up right now.
Okay, well, you're seeing illustrations from this particular book. I found it at a local bookstore, and I saw how, like, stunning the illustrations were. I mean, you're seeing them right now. They're really cool. So let's talk about A Christmas Carol. It's like the classic Christmas story.
Yep, that I have not read.
I'm sure you've read some version of it, or seen some version of it.
Yes, but also, like, probably should have gone and watched the Mickey Mouse version again before we did this. Just gonna be honest.
Gave you opportunities.
I know, I'm realizing my mistakes now.
Okay, so A Christmas Carol. I actually want to read a little bit from this book about, like, why Charles Dickens wrote this story, because there's a reason for it. It's not just he was writing a cute story. All right.
We do the research so you don't have to.
Well, this is actually just in this book.
That's a lie.
What?
We do the research so you don't have to. That's a lie.
Yeah. Alright, so this says, early in 1843, as a response to a government report on the abuse of child laborers in mines and factories, Dickens vowed he would strike a sledgehammer blow on behalf of the poor man's child. In December that year, he wrote one of his most popular works, A Christmas Carol. Through the story of the solitary miser Ebenezer Scrooge, who was taught the true meaning of Christmas by a series of ghostly visitors, Dickens vividly defined the message of goodwill towards mankind. The book was an instant sensation, and ever since its publication, it has had an enduring influence on Christmas traditions, becoming inextricably linked with our celebrations of the festival.
Mm-hmm.
So,
he also, like, through this story, made Christmas a thing in England again.
I mean, it was already becoming a thing in England again, but this significantly helped. Because there was actually a time, I'm not reading that part right now, I'll get to that later. There was actually a time when Christmas was actually banned in England.
Anybody who studied history, the Puritans. There you go. That's it. That's all you need to know. All right.
Well, it's because Christmas was becoming a mixture of religious celebrations.
Oh, no. Like, this is a thing. Like, the Puritans, it didn't matter what it was for. They were like, if it's fun, it's evil.
Yeah. But also, it was just the fact that it was the mixture of the Christian celebration, the pagan, and folk. Like, Christmas was becoming a combination of those things, which is more the Christmas we see now. It's a combination of different people's celebrations.
Which is how a lot of holidays honestly are.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't used to be. It's just how we are now.
Well.
But the point is, Christmas got banned for a while, and then it was starting to come back, but Dickens was very distressed by the fact that, like, this was during the Industrial Revolution period, and when all this was happening, like, children were in factories for hours and hours with very little pay, and, like, they were suffering. Like, they were not being treated well. And this was his way of saying, like, this is wrong.
Yep.
We've got to do something about this. And he knew, like, he had a voice at this point, so he's like, I'm doing something about it. And this made a really big impact.
Yeah. Okay, on to the story.
Alright, the story. Well, I feel like a lot of people probably know the story. So we've got Scrooge. Can we just say the Scrooge is almost like the original Grinch? There are similarities. They both hate Christmas. They're both very, like, cold individuals that go through a change of heart because of Christmas.
I mean, that's an archetype, I think, at this point.
But I'm saying, like, Scrooge was like, what is the word? Pre-Grinch.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, so we have Scrooge. He is a surly, mean, grumpy, old man.
Rich man.
Yes, rich man. He is the inventor of bah humbug.
I've seen the movie. He dives into his he has like a room's full of gold that he swims through. I've seen the movie. I know what he does.
He's rich and he is petty and he is selfish and greedy. The story is he is visited by his former partner Marley, who says, dude, you gotta change your ways. You're a jerk, nobody likes you, and that's not okay anymore, otherwise you're gonna be stuck like me. Because Marley's all wrapped up in chains and weights because he was a terrible person in his life. And he's like, alright, you're gonna be visited by 3 spirits. And they're gonna, well, it doesn't really say what's gonna happen, he just says 3 spirits are gonna visit you. He doesn't really go into detail about what the spirits are gonna do. So he's visited.
He doesn't name drop them?
No. So then we have Christmas Past, Christmas Present, and Christmas Future. Visit him. Christmas Past is where we see like how Scrooge became Scrooge.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts off like we see his childhood. He was sent to a boarding school. And I get the impression after reading it again that he was not cared for by his parents very much. We don't really hear about his mother. His mother might be dead. I don't remember if that was actually stated. But we get the idea that his dad's not a very kind man. That his dad has sent him away and doesn't want him there. And that really like sets Scrooge off on that path of grumpiness and moodiness and doing like having to fend for himself. Because one thing that is definitely true, and that's something that Charles Dickens was getting at, childhood trauma and childhood problems are the hardest to work through for a person. Like if you go through a trauma as an adult, that's still really bad. But when a child is still like developing, their brain is developing and they're learning like social emotional skills and all that, if they suffer a childhood trauma, that goes into their development and it's much harder to work through.
Yeah.
Versus as an adult, we've already developed social skills and emotional skills and we know how to process them.
Gee, it's almost like when you're developing into the person you're going to be.
Exactly.
Right.
But my point is, like, as a child, to suffer something like this versus as an adult, it's going to have a much bigger, longer lasting impact.
Yes, that's true.
So we see his childhood and how we get the idea that years and years go by, he's at this boarding school, and then finally he gets to come home. But at that point, he's already started to harden his heart. He's already started to become grumpy and moody. He's already becoming that person. Then we see, as he gets older, he's poor, but he wants to build his wealth. But he's not, like, stingy and greedy and, like, all about money yet. But he's getting there. He goes into jobs that are about money because he learns that that's where it's at.
Okay.
Then the last scene we see in his past is he has to he finds the love of his life, and then he loses the love of his life because he's more obsessed with money than her. Which is really sad when you think about it. Because, like...
And accurate.
Yeah. Because there's a conversation, he watches a conversation, the last conversation between the two of them, and it's about, how she's saying, like, you have to make a choice, like, we agreed to be in this together, that we were okay with being poor together, we'd build our lives together, and, like, being poor wasn't a bad thing, that we're doing the best we can, but she's like, you've changed, now you're more worried about money, you're more worried about image, you're more worried about the greed, rather than being loving and being a family.
Special guest.
Not really that special, he's in every video, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And then
The best part of every video.
And then he gets a glimpse of, like, I would guess like around 10, 15 years later he sees the girl, Belle, her name is Belle, with the person she ends up marrying in her happy, loving family. And that kind of just, like, he gets really sad and he goes, I don't want to see this anymore, I don't like this, like, I can't change the past. And you're right, you can't change the past.
Unless you're playing the Christmas Carol game we've been playing. In which case it follows this book perfectly.
But, so that obviously makes him very upset because he's like, yeah, that happened, can't change it. Then we get to Christmas Present. The spirit of Christmas Present.
Santa!
The spirits look different. The first one is like light. I've always thought that, the spirit of Christmas past is like shedding light on the past. Hello. Out of my face, please. Thank you. Is shedding light on the past. And then we have the present who's trying to make him aware of the present.
Yeah.
So he takes him through and, like, you're mistreating your current partner, and he shows him, like, Cratchit's family and talks about Tiny Tim.
He's
and that's
going to die.
No, poor Tiny Tim, he's gonna die. I mean, he doesn't die. Not in the story.
No, not the story, but like, we'll get there.
But anyway, so he shows him like how even in the current day, nobody likes him. Everyone like kind of like mocks him, makes fun of him, and thinks he's a fool that's just wasted his life trying to earn money for no reason. Like he sees images of his nephew, like making fun of him. He sees Bob Cratchit's family and how they're suffering. He sees Tiny Tim, and this is where he starts to get a little stirred up, but he's still not there yet. Like he's starting to, but he's still kind of like, okay, I get it, but I still don't really care yet. Then, sorry, I forgot clapping is loud. Then we get to the final spirit, the spirit of Christmas to come, or future.
It's a Grim Reaper.
And it's a Grim Reaper. And we really shouldn't be surprised by that because Scrooge is old. He spent his whole life being a miserable, greedy jerk. And that one pretty much, like, that one doesn't say anything. He doesn't speak. He just shows him things to come. Like, one, Tiny Tim gonna die.
Yeah.
Unless you change. And that starts the storm. Then he shows him his own grave and how it's like the next day.
Yeah. No, I've
or like
seen
the
this.
next year.
Yeah, it's like the next year.
Yeah.
Look, we've all seen this scene. It's where Peg Leg Pete shows Scrooge that he takes him to the future. Right? Peg Leg Pete's the ghost of Scrooge. I think it's Peg Leg Pete.
Okay, anyway. So we see he takes him to like a funeral home and the graveyard where he sees himself dead. It's either the next day, because it shows it's Christmas Day he dies. So it's implying either it's the next day or it's like a year from now you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Either way, he's like, oh my goodness, I don't want this to happen. Like, I've had a change of heart. Like, that is what really like sinks it for him. Because he's like, I don't have that much time left. I don't want this to be my fate. And so he goes back and he decides to be a better person.
Yeah.
And he goes and he helps Tiny Tim. He helps the whole Cratchit family. And he's like, I'm making you a partner. Like, your family will never be destitute again. And like he starts caring, like it talks about how he starts caring for Tiny Tim like he's his own.
Yeah.
And Tiny Tim lives!
Yay! Even though the medicine at the time period is probably just like alcohol and opium.
Okay.
But like, yay, Tiny Tim lives!
But we don't know what he does for Tiny Tim.
No.
We don't
actually. It might
actually.
just be that he gives him food.
It could just be he gives him like livable wages so they can like afford food and better housing and warmth.
Yeah. Clean water. Yeah. Alright.
But I think it's a good story.
Yeah.
I really like this one. I think it's an important story. I mean, I think even if you don't celebrate Christmas, I think the ideas to the story are really important. The idea that like Scrooge learns like greediness and money don't make you happy.
Yeah.
And the whole like mistreatment of children and how like Christmas should be a time to just stop and take a break and be kind and generous to each other. Because that was another really big point that he wanted to make, was the fact that like everyone was so obsessed with work and making money and just industrializing the world that no one ever stopped to take a break. And he was like, no, like there's a time to stop. There's a time to be kind and good-hearted. And this was his way of trying to tell people that.
Yeah.
All right, we need to do our drawing for next week.
Oh, okay. I don't know, I'm never here.
We have to draw a book for next week. All right, so I have my basket. My basket. All right.
I think I might come on more often just randomly and be like, so tell me about your book that I didn't read.
All right. So this week we are reading the Angel Fire trilogy. I am super excited. I love this trilogy. I read it, oh goodness, it was probably at least 4 or 5 years ago. I read it in high school. And I have the series. And I've read the whole thing probably multiple times.
I have not.
It's a good series. It's one of those series that most people I talk to have never heard of this author. They've never heard of this series. I have the book right here. I'm going to put it right here. That way you can see. It's a good series. They are a little bit longer and they're a little denser. It is a young adult fantasy romance. I mean, Angel Fire kind of gives you that idea.
I mean, sure.
I am going to be rereading, because I like rereading. Rereading is awesome. I'm going to be rereading the entire trilogy and doing a 3-part video, one for each book, because I'm going to get through these really fast.
I will not be reading these.
I don't expect you to. But I love that you joined us for Christmas.
Yeah.
We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Have a happy holiday season.
Merry Christmas.